So, what are we going to talk about this morning? Good morning. Hope you're enjoying your cup of coffee. It is a long weekend, Memorial Weekend. Let's not forget why this weekend exists to begin with. So, do take a moment to say thank you, just quietly. That's good enough. Shows appreciation. Now, I'm going to talk about Harvard because I find it funny. People just don't understand how that works. People think that Harvard's just being thrown billions of dollars, and then the president of Harvard goes buys a Ferrari. That's not what the money is used for. It is used, for example, for research. Now, what people don't understand is it's much cheaper to pay someone in Harvard to do whatever testing, whatever research they're doing, than for the federal government to actually hire employees on this, find a location, buy the equipment, pay them a salary, give them benefits, health insurance, prepare a pension for them, etc. So that I don't know what that number is, but it far exceeds what they give to universities to do this. Now, it's not just the federal government that does this. There's also private companies that do the same thing. Why? Because it's actually cheaper. So there is a benefit to paying Harvard X amount or Columbia or anyone else. It's not free money. They find, they do research, whether it's robotics, computers, weather. There's a perfect one. I'm from Miami. I graduated from FIU, Florida International University. They have what they call the wall of wind. This is breakthrough, basically, technology. It is a bunch of fans that create wind almost up to 190 miles an hour. I now think they're trying to get to a category 6 storm. They build structures there. The wind comes in, blows everything down, and they do the research. Do you think FIU can afford that just by some students paying tuition? Of course not. They partner up with other universities. They partner up, for example, in that case, with a wind tunnel company, and then they do all this testing in order to figure out what can withstand a hurricane, improve the building codes, etc. University of Miami. I was born and raised down the street from Miami. I grew up in the 80s when they had that football dynasty. And there's another example. They have this huge wave pool. I think it's more focusing on tsunamis, but to see the same thing. How does that affect, the tsunami, the waves, the coral reefs, whatever it is that they're trying to figure out? All that comes from research grants, granted by the federal government, granted by the state, local government, granted by private companies. It's done all the time. So what all these people on these bandwagon, I don't understand why they have to get so much money because of what they actually do. And it's much cheaper. And obviously the fact that they were continuing to get funds all the time proves that whatever research they were doing was actually successful. So I don't understand I don't want to say ignorance, but that's what it is. You have to ask yourself, because I've gone over and over again talking about critical thinking, and just ask yourself, why would they get this money? There's no such thing as a free lunch, right? That's why they get the money, because they do research. So it doesn't matter whether it's a University of Miami or Florida International University dealing with hurricanes. That's why it's done. As a matter of fact, I don't know if this has anything to do with it. I'm just making this up because I was there once and I wanted to go look at it. The back towers that they have at University of Florida. I don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands, of bats that they have where people actually go and look at this. But the bats are great for the environment. People don't realize that, but they are. Between killing the mosquitoes, they also pollinate, so they're very good for the environment. Was that part of it? I don't know. Probably it wouldn't have been that expensive since it's just a bunch of wood structures. But there's an example. You can study the bats, what it is that they do, and what they accomplish. So it's really that simple. There is no such thing as a free lunch. They get that money, they do research, they present it to the government or to a private company. So there is some sort of method to the madness of giving Harvard X amount, Columbia X amount, etc. Now, if it's too much or whatever, fine. That's for forensic accountants to figure out, not 19 to 24-year-old kids, the coders from Doge. But that's how the system works. It's pretty much that simple. Now let's look at this from the other economic perspective. Besides all that money flowing in and allows Harvard to expand their test facilities. By the way, if they expand their test facilities, someone has to come in and build that structure, right? That helps the economy. If they have to buy new equipment, guess what? That helps the equipment manufacturing company. See how that works? They bring in new students. Maybe you have the best research in whatever topic it is. Guess what? That brings in students who do what? They spend money. They have student loans. They go through the process. When they go out on the weekends and they're drinking beer, guess what they're doing? They're contributing to the local economy. That's how it's all tied together. I'm sick and tired of saying it's all tied in together. And to think otherwise is just being ignorance is bliss. It's all tied together on a global scale. It's all tied together on a national scale, whether it's the state or all the way down to the local government. And so now this latest push, and of course, Harvard already got a temporary restraining order on that one, where Harvard can't bring any more international students. Yeah, I get the dictatorship and bullyism and everything else that's attached to that. But again, what do foreign students do? They bring in money, and that money gets spent locally. It helps businesses, it helps everybody out. And guess what? It also does innovation. It brings the best and the brightest come here. They go to Harvard. They say, we're the smartest students around. What are we going to do research on? What are we going to do? That's the way it works. See, it's one full circle. All that money gets recirculated back. It's not free money. As a matter of fact, it is a savings to the federal government, the same way it's a savings to private companies who do the same exact thing. And again, you don't have to look at Harvard, FIU, and the wall of wind. And there's, who knows how many universities have whatever. Probably they all have something where they receive research grants. As a matter of fact, it's common that if you're a professor full time and maybe you run the division, that you also have to seek grants. Why? For this particular purpose. See how that works out? Little critical thinking. Any questions or comments, let me know. Post them in the comment section below.